Studies conducted in twins have estimated that approximately 20 to 30% of an individual's lifespan is related to genetics, while the rest is due to individual behaviors and environmental factors. In this context, nutrition and lifestyle are the most important factors to longevity and healthy aging.
Well, that's encouraging. That means we've got a lot of control over how long we're going to live, right?
Exactly. And similar to that, welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepic. Laura's back with me today. Laura, so nice to have you on the podcast again.
Jenn, it's great to be back again with you. This is fun.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. So I'll refresh everybody's memory a little, brag on you, Laura, right? So Laura started as a podcast listener, is still a podcast listener and a member, became a client with my 12-week signature course. And your cohort ended like August of 2021.
Correct, yes.
You know, and of course we've stayed in touch since then, but fill us in. How you doing?
Life is good. You know, it's been busy. My kids have kept me busy. My business has kept me busy. Still doing it's not a diet plan, but doing the lifestyle that we talked about. Still losing weight, not real fast, but
that's all right.
It's a good lifestyle though. Yeah. And I feel good. So, so it's all good, but things are going really well.
Awesome. Well, I'm thrilled to have you back. And I love having you for today's conversation also. So this week, everybody, we're talking about longevity, or I feel like most people call it anti-aging.
Yes.
Right. And we're all into that. Nobody wants to get old.
Right. We all want to live forever, but have good quality of life that whole time, right?
Exactly. And I want to say, for our younger listeners out there, keep listening. Like, it is never too early to start. Don't think this is just for the old people. It's not.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we'll kick this off with a question. Do you look your age? And while you ponder that, right? Everybody think about the answer to that question. I'm going to tell our members what they're getting while you think about this. So members, the meal I think I get the most questions about is breakfast. So I'm sending you another recipe for perfect breakfast during the week or even a weekend brunch. It's for crustless spinach quiche. You'll love it. You can make it and then eat pieces of it all week for breakfast. And since it's officially March, the last month of the quarter, you get your live Q&A details. So we're going to do this as a group, right? Everybody on Zoom at the same time, building community, sharing together. So details for that will be in your inbox with your recipe. So if you want this recipe, you want to join us in the live Q&A, I don't blame you. Join us. Here's what you do. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. The membership is only $10 a month, for which you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. All of this delivered to your inbox on Fridays. And at $10 a month, it pays for itself with all of the offers that you get, right? You're saving more than that $10 cost. As I always say, show yourself that your health is a priority with this membership. Plus, your membership supports this podcast and this community so we can continue bringing you new episodes and experts every single week, which is my favorite thing. So help us out, right? All right, so one more time, you go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment method, click subscribe, and you're all set. It's that easy, like 4 clicks. And you'll get this week's recipe for the crustless spinach quiche and the details for your quarterly live Q&A. All right, so back to the question I asked. Do you look your age? Laura, what do you think?
Well, so I usually ask my kids this when I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see people I went to high school with or went to college with, and they look super old. And I
Right?
ask my kids, do I look as old as this person? And of course, they're trained to say, no, mom, you don't look nearly as old as that person. So,
Right.
yeah, so I
I
don't
don't think I
know.
do either. I don't think I
No.
do either. It's honestly one of my favorite games to play when I meet new people. I have a friend, I go to her place for dinner on Fridays, and Summer, she was here with us for an episode last year. So I typically go to her house for dinner on Fridays, and there's always sort of one or two new people. And I tend to be a little bit older than the average dinner guest, but it's always my favorite thing to make them guess how old I am. And I love it. Even networking, like people are like, oh,
Yes.
you wouldn't remember this. And I'm like, well, I'm older than I look, you know?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
But it's funny because when we think of old or aging, I feel like in my head, it's sagging skin, no life, no quality of life, like aches and pains, weight gain, like retiring and not doing anything,
Yep.
you know?
And yeah, sitting on the couch all day or sitting in the recliner all day and going to dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we might do that now and then, my husband and I, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. But it's interesting because, first of all, none of that sounds appealing, right? But the only people I know who actually meet those qualifications are like in their 90s, like 80s and 90s. But I don't know. I just feel like we have this old sense of, what it means to age. And Christine, who's joined me who I do the webinars with every month, she keeps saying, we have to stop saying, I don't look my age. Because what we really have to do is redefine what each age looks like, right?
Okay.
No, this is what 38 looks like now. This
Right.
is what 58, 68, 78 looks like now. And shift that perspective from the thing that we always thought age looked like.
And those ages really seem so much younger to me now as I'm getting closer to those ages anyway. So
Right.
I think that's a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this quote. Marilyn Ferguson said, of all the self-fulfilling prophecies in our culture, the assumption that aging means decline and poor health is probably the deadliest.
Ooh.
Right? I love that one. And it's really true. I've read somewhere that there's also this thing of like, if you have an idea of what age you're going to live till, or you sort of picture your life till a certain point, that's actually tends to be what happens. So we're going to shift that number to 100 plus and ensure
Yeah.
that we also have the quality of life that,
Exactly. Yeah. And I
awesome.
have known people like that, I've known one guy in particular, his dad died at age 74. And so when he reached 74, he was like, okay, my life is done. He was still living, but he had kind
Hmm.
of mentally given up. And,
Yeah.
and that's, yeah, your mind really does have a huge effect on how you approach life. And so we want to keep the mind young too.
Right. And so that actually, and most people call this conversation, what we're going to talk about today, like anti-aging, right? And by definition, aging is just the passing of time, which we can't stop. So calling it anti-aging is somewhat of a misnomer, right? And maybe that's not what we want to call it. So, I think also too with the passing of time, like we gain a lot of life experience and we grow, and maybe aging isn't all that bad, right?
Yeah, because of all the things that we've learned, I wouldn't want to go back and do those teenage years again for
Right.
anything. Even though I know a lot more now than I did then, I think I'd approach them a little better, but I still wouldn't go back and do them again. So, yeah, I think you're right. That's maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
let's agree to call it aging well, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So aging well is our conversation today. We're going to tackle sort of the biggest factors that play into that, assessing ourselves a little bit, and then what we can do about it, and then a couple of my favorite bonus thoughts, if you will. All right.
Sounds good.
So When we think of aging, right, and things that diminish with age, what are the first things you think of, Laura?
That diminish with age?
Yeah.
Memory.
Uh-huh.
Memory is one. Like you said earlier, skin,
Yep.
maybe eyesight, some of those
Yeah.
things.
And I also think like activity
Yeah.
and muscle, right?
Yeah.
Sex life is another one that we'll touch on a little bit. The biggest factors that contribute to aging: sleep, stress, body composition, activity, and smoking.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So, talking about body composition for a second, we've discussed it before. 88% of the adult population in the US has several risk factors for blood sugar levels outside of healthy ranges. So, 12% of us are metabolically healthy. And when we think of this in terms of aging, no bueno. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? And it's interesting. So, I have to make my notes bigger. I can't even see here.
Uh-oh. That's
So,
not a
no, it's
factor
fine.
of aging, is it?
Right, I know. Funny I should say that. So, it's interesting too. So, the frontal lobe of the brain, which shrinks as a consequence of our metabolic dysregulation. So, the frontal lobe of the brain, we talk about prefrontal cortex all the time. Prefrontal cortex is included in the frontal lobe. So, prefrontal cortex is all of that like higher order thinking, right? Self-monitoring, stuff like that. But the frontal lobe is like voluntary movement, expressive language, control, emotion. So, hello, right? No, I mean, wow, all of a sudden dots are connecting,
Right,
you
right.
know?
So is it a matter of if you don't use it, you lose it? Is
Yes,
that
very
what's going
much
on?
so. And with the frontal lobe, part of it is if you don't use it, you lose it. And part of it is also a function of the metabolic dysregulation impacting our ability to use and the activity in the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
92.2% of individuals over age 65 are living with disease. One of my mentors is a naturopath, and she says arguably healthy aging is virtually unseen in the United States. Aging in
Wow.
America leaves us mentally and physically inactive.
That is disheartening.
Right? Don't worry, we're going to pick things up. We got solutions,
Good,
but
good,
it
good.
but it is, right?
Yeah. That's and but you hear about that too, because as we age, we start hearing everybody's talking about all their doctor's appointments and all of their,
Right,
all
all
the
their meds.
prescriptions they take and
Yeah.
everything. So yeah, I guess that
Yeah.
sounds about right.
And there's a piece of it that is natural, right? Sarcopenia, right, is age-related muscle loss, right? This is a natural part of aging. So after about age 30, we begin to lose like 3 to 5% of our muscle mass per decade. Most men will lose about 30% of their muscle mass during their lifetimes, which is kind of
Wow.
crazy. But that's very much if you don't use it, you lose it kind of
Right.
a thing. And the other interesting thing, so we hear about sarcopenia all the time. There's another thing that we hear about less often called dynapenia, which is the decrease in power behind our muscles, which is
Ooh.
interesting too. And again, it falls into that same if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
Sleep, I mentioned, was one of the big factors. Sleep loss after age 60 is about 35 to 45% of the US population over age 65.
Wow.
I
And
mean, it's
again,
real.
it is. Yeah. And again, I think of all of these, stories that I hear from friends and family and things, and they say, yeah, the older ladies in our family are like, yeah, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and,
Mhm.
that kind of get my day started. So
Yep.
yeah, plays right into that.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, like I think the other thing we think of, or another thing we think of with aging is that weight gain
Yes.
and that metabolic slowdown. So what's interesting is that our nutrient requirements increase with age while our caloric needs decrease.
So it's even more important to be getting the right foods as we age.
Exactly. And part of those nutrients, right? Okay, so aging connected to muscle loss, thinner skin, reduced stomach acid, right? All these things. Even our ability to recognize hunger and thirst can be reduced as we age. Older adults, though, it seems also need fewer calories to maintain their weight, most likely as a combination of less tendency to move, less muscle mass, those kinds of things. But it's really interesting. Like you said, the tissue in our, our thinning skin, yes, but also the thinning of the tissue within our bodies comes into play there. And so really those nutrient dense foods, getting our minerals, our quality micronutrients too, becomes really, really important. Certainly hormones play a factor, right? Postmenopausal women with declining estrogen levels, right? The declining estrogen is connected with an increase in belly fat storage.
Yeah.
The rate, though, of all of these things that we're talking about, like how quickly or slowly that happens, is a function of our lifestyle,
Of course. Yeah. Makes
right?
sense.
Yeah. And I think it just reminds us, okay, right? We are in control of this process. It's not about necessarily like fighting biology and fighting chemistry, but really working with our body to prolong the process,
Right.
sort of delaying the process, if you will. Another one that tends to come up as like buzzwords is HGH, right? Human growth hormone. So human growth hormone does like the production naturally declines with age, right? It's released by the pituitary gland, mostly in response to sleep and exercise to help us repair and replenish. So when we have optimal levels of HGH, we tend to have leaner body mass, cell regeneration, healthy immunity, healthy bone density. HGH can help us break down fat for energy, right? It helps improve body composition in all these ways. So HGH is another one where, yes, naturally it's going to decline with age, but we can also help our body continue to produce HGH. I also mentioned stress as a factor, and I thought this was really interesting. More than 75% of visits to a person's doctor are related to stress.
Wow. And stress is one that I can relate to very well. So,
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
I mean, all of us in our own ways. And, the last however many years of this pandemic,
Right.
And it's interesting too, because so many of the things that we've been talking about really are connected to the muscle mass, and cortisol, the stress hormone, reduces net muscle protein synthesis. So if we're doing all the things, but not managing our stress, we have a real challenge.
Right. Yep. Yep. And managing our stress is often done by building muscle. That exercise is often a great
Yep,
way to address the stress. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, I think, partly with the pandemic and just in general, we think of those who are older as now the buzzword immunocompromised, right? But essentially, as we age, our immune function can decline. Sedentary behavior is the second leading cause for immune dysfunction, along with diet.
Again, kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the things people will say to me is like, what role do genetics play in all of this? Especially when we think about how long someone's going to live. So, I'm quoting from a study published in 2016 that said studies conducted in twins have estimated that approximately 20 to 30% of an individual's lifespan is related to genetics, while the rest is due to individual behaviors and environmental factors. In this context, nutrition and lifestyle are the most important factors to longevity and healthy aging.
Well, that's encouraging. That means we've got a
Right.
lot of control over how long we're going to live, right?
Exactly. And similar to that, Dr. Daniel Rudman, I don't know if anybody has heard of him. says, the overall deterioration of the body that comes with growing old is not inevitable. We now realize that some aspects of it can be prevented or reversed. Right. And I think what that sort of boils down to is like a lot of like, hormone shifts and body composition things, like a lot of stuff that comes with age do not necessarily happen because we age. Right? We age because our hormone production declines due to the lifestyle choices, like the poor eating and, sedentary habits.
So if we're paying attention and we stay active, then that just means good things for a longer, healthier, happier life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a couple things we can do to assess ourselves, right? And see where we're at to sort of check in. Interesting assessment tool. 16 to 18% of women and 8 to 10% of men in the United States over age 65 cannot lift 10 pounds or stop and kneel down.
Wow. 10 pounds is not that much. So
so everybody get lifting.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And to your point, right? 10 pounds isn't that much. It's functional training.
Right.
Not necessarily all the other things that we think we need to do. Like you don't have to be a bodybuilder to be able to have muscle as we, progress in years.
Right.
If you have swelling and stiffness in the joints every day, you are more likely to have damage than someone who has those symptoms less often. It's like, think of it like the tread on your tires that wear over time. The cartilage, like the cushions in your joints, can break down too, like the tread on a tire. And it's interesting because like we can have damage to the joints without feeling pain. So if you see swelling in the joints, that's a reliable sign, Also, like feeling a little tenderness if you press on the joints is an interesting thing to look at, right? And the joints, when we think of, bending down, being able to lift our body weight, those kinds of things. Balance tests are a really good one to do. And balance can be, stand on one foot. What can you do standing on one foot, and your recovery, right? Like your reaction time. So when let's say you're doing something on one foot that's requiring balance, how do you sort of wobble and catch yourself? The objective is not to not wobble, right?
Right.
I mean, sure, that's fine, but it's about a reaction time, because think about how many times do we hear somebody fell, right? If we have the ability to react and catch ourselves and recover, we can prevent that falling. We can prevent that injury.
Right. And all the things that come after that fall too.
Exactly.
And as a result of that fall. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, this next test, a doctor gave us at a conference a couple years ago. And at that time I was like, oh, I don't like this one. Like, I don't even know if I could do this, right? So you're supposed to sit on the ground cross-legged and stand straight up, not using your hands.
Oh,
right? It is so hard. I can get up off the floor without using my hands, but not from cross-legged to like straight up.
Right.
So
now I'm wanting to do some of these exercises now, Jen. You're just to see what my reaction time is.
Right. Let's pause and come back. So you can also look at your waistline, right? Your waist to hip ratio. First of all, measure your body composition, but your waist to hip ratio can also give us an indicator of what's happening. For that formula, it's waist circumference divided by your hip circumference. For men, we want it to be 0.9 or less. For women, 0.85 or less, just as a barometer there. Those are according to the World Health Organization. So whatever that means to you.
And what does that tell us if our waist to hip ratio is less than 0.85?
It's giving us a barometer, if you will, for our metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, fat storage, some of those kinds of factors.
Okay. All right.
Body fat percentage is also in that same category of measurements that we want to take.
Right.
And then you mentioned too, the memory loss thing. So that's a big one. So here are a couple things to think about, right? Do you notice mental and or emotional instability? Do you have trouble focusing at work, finishing a task, brain fog, forgetfulness, right? Feeling overwhelmed by details, mental fatigue? And what's interesting is risk factors for cognitive decline are social network disengagement, introverted personality, lack of physical exercise, lack of sleep, right? Non stimulating lifestyle, like all the things that we were sort of told to do over the last couple years.
And that's exactly what I
Yep.
was thinking. And that's one of the most common things you hear about COVID too is the brain
Right.
fog, the can't think straight, can't keep the list of tasks in order and all of that. So yeah, but yes, that interaction, that personal interaction, relationships are so important and keep you going. It's good to know that statistics will tell us the same thing too.
Right. And like we've said, this isn't irreversible. This isn't, we're not doomed, like I always say, right? So I want to get into all the things we can do to address these factors and what we can do to age well,
That
right?
sounds good.
Finding true longevity. We'll get into all that after a quick message from our partner for this episode, Lumiere de Vie Skincare. Lumiere de Vie Skincare was founded by Amber Ridinger McLaughlin in response to her own experience of mere marginal results from countless costly creams. She realized the revitalization of her youthful skin could only occur if she developed products herself. Working closely with beauty scientists and exploring the most advanced ingredients derived from the earth and sea, Amber created Lumiere de Vie, the next generation of skincare. The extensive line of luxury skincare products is designed to address all skin types and concerns with the highest quality natural ingredients and powerful formulas that help heal, soothe, moisturize, and protect. Lumiere de Vie acts as first aid for your skin. The result? Rejuvenated, luminous, beautiful looking skin. So as we're talking about aging well today, Laura, do you remember the book, I Feel Bad About My Neck by Nora Ephron?
Oh,
So
no,
it
I don't know that
came
I'm
out,
familiar with that one.
okay, it came out in like the early 2000s. And I remember everybody reading it and laughing. And essentially, it's because, especially with skincare, we pay so much attention to our faces that they say you look at someone's neck or the back of their hands to see their true age. So Lumiere de Vie has us covered, right? Check out, it's called Lift Up. It's their neck and décolleté cream. So the formula is packed with potent ingredients like jojoba esters, niacinamide, squalene, and more to deeply moisturize, reduce the appearance of wrinkles and redness, and helps to brighten the skin and uses an innovative technology to help improve skin elasticity and firmness for a tighter and lifted looking jawline. Yes, please.
Sounds
Right?
good. Yeah.
So it's $65, but not for you because you get 10% off and free shipping for being a salad with a side of fries listener. Simply text the word skin, SKIN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word skin to 844-947-4846 to get 10% off and free shipping. And I highly recommend the Lumiere de Vie Lift Up Neck and Décolleté Cream. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. All right.
What an appropriate sponsor for today's episode.
Right? I know. I was like, this is perfect. So what do we want to do for longevity? Right? We want to think about some health targets. Healthy lipids, right? So quality fats, optimal blood pressure, energy, youthful joints, sexual health, cognitive health, and improved body fat percentage. Okay.
Sounds easy enough.
Right. How we get to all of those things, and it feels like a lot, I know.
Yeah.
A lot of them are connected. How we get to that, though, aging well, as I like to call it, is a simple equation. So think about like a triangle with 6 layers. Like remember the old food pyramid where it was like a triangle with a bunch of layers?
Yep.
So we're going to make a new one. It's our longevity triangle, right?
Okay.
So 6 layers. The bottom right? That foundation is longevity. That's what we're heading towards. So the top one, so we're going to go top to bottom. Diet, nutrition. I hate the word diet. Nutrition, right? Plus exercise, plus stress management, plus rejuvenating sleep, plus purpose equals longevity. So let's tackle those. Nutrition, as I always say, right? Protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal.
Exactly.
Right? A big thing as we age is getting enough vegetables. We talked about the need for those micronutrients, those vitamins and minerals. So that means we really need vegetables. 8 to 12 servings a day of vegetables and fruit.
Which is
our
very
goal.
doable.
It is very doable. I'm going to tell you absolute minimum, like a little tough love, everybody. Absolute minimum is 5.
Yep.
8 to 12, you can do. Takes a little effort, but you can do it.
It does. And I remember when I first started working with you thinking 8 servings of vegetables, this is impossible. And vegetables at breakfast? What? That's
I know.
not even a thing, but it is. And it's so doable. And I've seen the results. So yes, totally agree.
Love it. Eat the rainbow, right? All the colors. So one of the things we do with the kids is how many colors of the rainbow can you get on your plate at a time? Kind of helps us too, right? Get that purple cauliflower. Have some eggplant, you know, all the colors. And then inevitably in this conversation, everybody goes, well, should I just be plant-based? Right. And I always say to everybody, you know, telling me you're plant-based doesn't tell me what you are eating. Tells me what you're not eating. But I will say this, right? There's no evidence that a plant-based diet is best for 100% of people. There is evidence that 100% of people would benefit from more plants in their diet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So that's the nutrition piece, right? That top layer of the pyramid. Next one's exercise, right? We talk about them all the time. Strength training, build muscle. Muscle dictates metabolism.
Yep.
Right? We need cardio to use our heart as a muscle. That is a very important muscle we have.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And flexibility and stretching, right? So that we have functional muscle. But I'm adding to that. So part of flexibility is also balance. But we can add balance to all pieces of this exercise activity regimen, right? So I want us to keep thinking about balance as we're thinking about aging and that recovery.
Yep, makes sense.
Most days of the week, we have to move our mass, right? I don't care what you're doing. Find something you like. Keep doing it.
Exactly.
Cool? Okay.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Next layer on this new longevity pyramid. Stress management, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's, first of all, every single one of these is an episode onto itself.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think you've done an episode on most of them too. So
exactly. But the stress piece also connects to the purpose piece, which is sort of later on in this pyramid. And we have to lower our stress and increase our purpose.
Yeah. And that really does make sense, because when you find a purpose and you're doing things you enjoy, it doesn't seem stressful. It just seems enjoyable. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also very individual, right? Our own daily habits are what will dictate our health or dis-ease. And stress management becomes a big piece of that, right? One of the things is, this is also from that same naturopath who I love. She says, don't sweat the small stuff, but focus on the little things.
Okay.
Right? Like little things added up go a long way, but we also need to not add stress because we've got enough.
Yes.
The next one on that list is sleep. And again, we've had a whole episode plus on sleep. Rest is about turning off fight or flight, right? So is our stress management, but turn off that fight or flight. We want to aim for 7.5 plus hours of sleep per night.
And does that need to be all at one time? So like if we get 5.5 hours of sleep at night and a 2-hour nap in the day, does that count? Does that altogether count? I should know the answer to that, but I don't know that I do.
No, I don't even really know the answer to that because I haven't looked at enough data to say yes, it matters. The short answer is, from the research I do know, it sort of depends when that 5.5 is.
Yeah. So like if it's before
Right.
midnight, it's more more
Yeah, like
valuable,
that.
right?
I think it's like 11 to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
is super critical. So if it's like, 10 to 4:30 or something, you know what I mean? Like 10:30 to 4, something in there. It's better than if it's, 1 to 7:30 or whatever. That's not
Right.
5.5 hours, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So if you're staying up really late, you're losing a lot of the benefits of getting restful sleep,
Right.
even if you sleep later in the morning. But
Right.
yeah.
And like, we need the quality and the quantity. And a piece of this that plays into the stress, the sleep, and the purpose is hyperstimulation. For 100% of us, we experience hyperstimulation. It impacts our energy, our mental focus, and our brain aging. Right? 70% of adults admit that they feel distracted when they're on the job. 16% admit that they're almost always distracted.
Wow.
Right? And this can play into our stress reduction stuff. This can play into our purpose stuff. But if we make it part of our little daily habits, right? The little things that we're going to focus on to turn off all of the stimulation around us, it's like that 5 minutes of meaningful silence. You could call it meditation. You can call it mindfulness. You can call it peace and quiet. I don't care. Right?
Yep.
We have to practice slowing down, focusing on one thing. It is a muscle that we can build just like everything else. But we
Which
got
is
to
so
do a little
interesting.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, which is so interesting because so many times in our work and in just life, we're encouraged to multitask.
Yep.
We got to get 5 things done in the next 20 minutes. So that's what's aging all of us then. That's
Absolutely.
we're losing our focus because we're trying to multitask too much.
Yeah. And I think energy, right? When we look at all of those factors, right? The purpose, the stress, the exercise, the nutrition, right? All of these things. Did I hit them all? Diet, exercise, stress, sleep, purpose, right? In
Yes.
all of those
Yes.
things, energy plays a big role. So I want to talk about energy for a second, right? And energy, by the way, is not caffeine, right? And we have different types of energy. We have energy from macronutrients, right? We have, right, and getting the proper ratio or our personal best ratio of nutrients, movement, sufficient caloric intake, right? And rest, right? All of these things create energy. What steals our energy? Lack of exercise, lack of sleep, too much stress.
The opposite of the things
Exactly.
that give us energy, right?
Right. And I think, I have some notes here. We can get into a little bit of the science piece of it. But we learned this in 7th grade science, right? Objects in motion tend to stay.
In motion,
Objects at rest tend to stay.
at rest.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right? So as we get older, we got to keep moving
Yep.
because it's way harder to get up again, And I don't mean that quite literally all day long, don't sit down. I mean, every day we got to get up and move our bodies because the more days in a row we don't move, the harder it is. We often call it motivation, right? The
Yep.
harder it is to motivate to get ourselves up and out again.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And the more we get up and out and keep moving, the more we think that's just the norm and we just keep doing it. So, yeah.
And then on the more sciencey side, so mitochondrial health. So mitochondria are like the energy source, like the battery, the powerhouse of every cell, right? A decline in mitochondrial quality and activity has been associated with aging and correlates with age-related health concerns. Well, that makes sense, right?
Yep.
And we've talked about CoQ10 before in the context of heart health, right? CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, feeds that mitochondria of every cell and in particular muscle cells. With aging, naturally, CoQ10 decreases. Studies show that by the time you're 80 years old, you have 50% decline in the levels of CoQ10 compared to a 20-year-old.
Ooh. So a lot slower cells.
Yep. So on a cellular level, we have less energy. But if we continue to support everything, we can maintain and build mitochondrial health, right? So when we think of energy, as we age, our caloric intake needs decrease, but our nutrient needs increase. So we want to make sure that we're not eating processed foods and sugary foods, right? That we're getting proper nutrition. B vitamins, specifically B3, we get back to exercise, right? Amino acids, CoQ10, stress reduction and sleep, right? All these things. We keep sort of hearing the same themes over and over, but I think it's important that we, address all these factors because we can think that they're all separate efforts.
But they really all play in together.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And then I want to touch on sexual health for a moment because I think it's sort of two sides of this coin. Like we've heard so many times about, I remember at one point, it was like when I was growing up, the sexually transmitted infection rates were growing the fastest among the elderly compared to the younger people, right? And it's because we had a different conversation about sex ed, right?
Yep, exactly. That's one of the number one things they watch for in nursing homes is sexually transmitted diseases.
Yes. Yeah. So as we age, though, we often hear men are concerned about stamina and erectile dysfunction. Women are more concerned about desire or interest. You know what all of these boil down to?
What's that?
Stress.
Oh, stress is such a dirty word.
It is. I know, right? It's stress impacts our sex hormones and that desire or interest and that stamina. And so blood flow also impacts erectile dysfunction. So when we think about that, heart health is sexual health, right? And we really, the same things that we're doing for everything else are also going to help give us that sexual health that we're looking for. 52% of adults, men and women, report being dissatisfied with their sex life.
Ouch.
Stress, people. Stress and heart health.
Yeah.
Right? And there are certainly some herbs and things, we can look at some targeted formulas and stuff like that. But I want to talk about a few things that sort of come up that people will ask me about. Sexual health is one of them. Another one is detoxification. So when we think of aging, right, detoxification are detox organs, the liver, the gallbladder, the kidneys, our skin, our lymphatic system, and our bowels. All of these together are responsible for healthful aging. So the liver is for binding and neutralizing environmental toxins, plus toxins that our body creates in the aging process, right? Hormones, oxidized lipids, excess glucose, right? The liver's going to process all that stuff. Kidneys are responsible for elimination of these toxic substances. Removing the toxins supports the health of our tissues, right? May improve blood flow, promotes healthy oxygen levels, improves health of our skin, and very often also improves energy, right? We're still coming full circle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You just keep coming back to the same stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Minerals play the largest nutrient role in assisting in the cellular action of energy and detoxification. So minerals are the necessary cofactors for hundreds of metabolic actions crucial for energy metabolism, hormone production, bone health, immune function, clearance of cellular debris, right? So our bodies tightly regulate the use of minerals, partitioning them for later use because the body can't make them. The body can't make them, we have to take them. We have to get them through food and potentially supplementation, right? So when we think about the things that we can do, right? The quality of our food, eating the rainbow. We want to get all of those vitamins and minerals. Hair loss came up as a question recently, so I figured we could throw it in here. We do see this with aging. We also see it at other times in life as well. The most common reason is typically malnutrition.
Really?
Although we do see it a bit, post-COVID, like if your body is really fighting something, growing hair takes a lot of energy. So this is me, not science. I think that when we think of hair loss with age, it's a function of both nutrition and the energy that it takes to grow hair. And I think when when we're trying to partition our energy and stay alive, growing hair becomes not the priority.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And I usually think of hair loss as we age more in women, more so than in men. I think usually when I think of men's hair loss, it's usually earlier in life. I think of the aging hair loss more in women. Is there a reason for that you know of?
No, I don't think so.
And maybe that's just anecdotal.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
I
not
don't know.
science.
Right.
It's
I don't know.
just
Cause I'm trying to think. I mean, it's like the comb over became a thing for a reason.
That's true. Yes,
know?
that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it does make sense though that like you said, as we're aging, if we have less energy, our energy is going to be more focused on moving, walking maybe rather than growing hair.
Yeah.
So that does make sense.
Yeah. All right. You want the easy button for all these things in that equation?
Definitely.
Automation, right? How do we automate these things?
Yeah.
Habits. Womp. I know
course.
that was super boring. That was like the opposite of like a big reveal. Right? But making it a habit. How can we make sure that these little things happen all the time, no matter what? Think about our morning routine, right? What can you put into your morning routine? Sun exposure, potentially, right? Evening routine, maybe minimize stimulation at that evening routine.
Put away the phone.
Right? Think about what's important to you. Prioritize, right? And then we want to think about intensity versus frequency.
Yep.
Habits. We are better off with the frequency. If it means less intensity at times, that's okay, right? It's the habits, it's the little things that are happening all the time that are going to play the biggest factors in aging well. When you think about your health, I want, or your health goals, right? I want you to ask yourself, what steps am I willing to commit to for maintaining lean muscle mass, for maintaining healthy cognitive function, for maintaining my immune health? A lot of those are all the same things. But
Yes.
the magic part of this question is, what am I willing to commit to?
And do it consistently.
And then we go back to that intensity versus frequency, right? I think the other part of the easy button, start now. It is never too late and it is never too early, right? We can think about our daily habits, addressing both our everyday health needs and sort of making deposits into our future health and aging requirements as well.
And if nothing else, we're starting those habits that we can carry on as habits as we continue to age.
Exactly. And we can reframe this whole conversation into thinking about what is within my control. The quality of my sleep, the quality of my exercise, the quality of my words, my thoughts, and my interactions, right? Getting into that purpose piece again.
Yeah.
I'll come
You
back
make
to
it sound easy too.
oh, well, good. It doesn't have to be hard, and nutrient wise. And again, like I didn't want to get too deep in the weeds on the science stuff. So I have an episode coming up that's going to be like a Q&A on supplements. So if you have questions on any of this stuff, send those in. Suffice to say for here, dominant nutrients that impact long-term health: vitamin D, magnesium, curcuminoids or polyphenols, omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, probiotics, and amino acids. Send in questions, right? Last piece, I want to one more minute on the purpose thing because I think it's often overlooked. And even as we were going through, kind of went through it fast. We often think of aging meaning retirement, right? We stop doing the things. Keep learning. Keep your mind active. Find things you enjoy. Maybe it's not, oh, I have to do this because it's my job. But what's interesting to you? Dig deeper, explore those things. And it's funny, I think we talked about this before, like sort of the beauty of age is wisdom,
Yeah.
and maybe that plays into this purpose piece. Like, how can we let our wisdom guide us? Don't sweat the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
how do we recognize what's small stuff and what, needs our attention and what doesn't?
yeah. And I know a lot of my friends and I really, we're kind of at that stage where we've been raising kids. And so we've kind of lost what our passion is, what our
Mm-hmm.
purpose is. Our purpose has been to raise our kids. And
Yep.
now, like, I'm beginning to look at that. Oh, empty nesting is within sight here pretty soon. And so then it becomes, oh my goodness, what am I going to do without two kids in my house that I'm not going to have to be driving them around and chasing after them? And oh wait, now I can find something that I like to do. So, but I know a lot of people that kind of that scares them because
Right.
it's been 20 something years since they've had to do something they want to do that's not focused around the kids. So that's a really important piece of it though, is finding something that's important to you, not because you've been raising your kids all and the raising the kids has been a great purpose, but
Sure.
finding that purpose for yourself is something that's, I think it's exciting for me too, because now I do get to get back
Yeah.
to me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And maybe it's exploring things like maybe the things that were so exciting however many years ago, 20 years ago, aren't as exciting right now. Maybe now you're interested in new
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And this whole conversation also reminds me of the word anti-fragile. And I know I've mentioned this on a couple episodes in 2021. I definitely in our episode on pain, and I think also in the one where we talked about your wellness GPS. But anti-fragile is more than just resilience or robustness. It's really that something improves because of the setback, shock, challenge. And so, in terms of like our wisdom, in terms of our purpose, maybe it's about cultivating this, what's called an anti-fragile mindset, right? So instead of being resilient or adaptive, you actually get better. You get stronger in the face of extreme stressors and chaos and disorder. So rather than just dealing with it, we can use the experience to improve. I mean, talk about purpose, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a thinker too. That's something I need
Uh-huh.
to give some thought to. So
Yeah. Laura, any questions or final thoughts on this aging well and longevity equation?
the things you went over make a lot of sense. I don't think any of that is rocket science or
Right.
anything's going to be new to anybody, but it's big picture stuff, and it's things that you do have to kind of put some intentionality into and make sure that, all of those pieces come and fall into the right place to help us to age well.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to leave it with this quote from Socrates. Are you ready? We're getting very philosophical today.
Oh boy.
Okay, from Socrates. No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It's a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable.
Wow. That's
And I would like to
beautiful.
add that your brain is part of your body.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Right? Maybe I can be a philosopher now too. Just by
You
quoting the
should.
others, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's like by proximity, right?
Sure. Sure.
Right.
Something like that.
That's exactly how it goes. All right. All right. I know that was a lot. Our nutrition nugget is on the shorter side. You ready for it?
Yeah.
This week, we're talking about the word don't,
Uh-oh.
right? So this goes back to the subconscious mind. Okay. Our subconscious mind does not know the difference between truisms and falsehood. Rather, it believes whatever it's told. However, it cannot compute the word don't. For some reason, it just doesn't register. Like, think about it, right? If I say, don't think of a pink elephant, all you think of is a pink elephant.
Right.
It's like the word don't wasn't even there. So when do you use the word don't, right? How often might we say to ourselves, don't eat that? Or thinking about like the Super Bowl parties that happen, right? We might sit there and go, don't eat more, don't have that candy, right? Don't eat the cookies. And then all we focus on are the food, the candy, the cookies, whatever it is. So, how can we use this to reframe how we talk to ourselves so that it makes everything a lot easier? Maybe thinking about upcoming holidays or upcoming travel, what will you focus on? Instead of focusing on what you don't want, right? What we don't want to do, make the emphasis what you will do, what you will eat, right? Rather than what you don't want to do or don't want to eat. So if you're a listener often, you might notice that like I rarely tell you what not to do. I generally make a very conscious effort to focus on what we will do because it's fundamentally more empowering and it works with our natural brain function. I also think like the bonus of that is we feel way less deprived, way less obsessed when we focus on what we will do. And I think this is also a critical piece in our evolution of wellness through our lives, right? Learning to be motivated by what we do want instead of by what we don't. And we can talk more about this at another time. And I've talked about it before, but part of the process and our progress is like typically when we start, right? We're unhappy. We're motivated by everything we don't want. And what we want to do is over time shift to be motivated by what we do want. Right? And this, it's a life satisfaction thing. Really, though, especially for today's conversation, it's actually working with our brain to help support us. So let's focus on all we're going to do, minimize or eliminate telling ourselves what we're not doing because our brain doesn't hear it, right? And then watch how much easier life gets. This is actually the shortcut to behavior change. Laura, any questions or thoughts on the word don't?
You know, I go back to when you and I were working together in our
Mm-hmm.
in the coaching sessions. And I remember I had my niece's graduation party, I think, one weekend. And you said something to me that I promise you, I still hear your voice in my head like every few days. How do you want to feel when the weekend is over? And that has been so motivating. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's you didn't
Uh-huh.
say don't eat, 3 plates full of pulled pork. It's more how do you want to feel? And so what will you do? And yeah, it's much more motivating. So yeah, it's encouraging. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. This is so much fun. I so enjoy being on here.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to call on you again then. I enjoy having you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Our website, A Salad with a Side of Fries, social media or the website. Submit your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me. If you aren't already, become a member. Join us for the fun. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries or click the link in the show notes. Your membership supports this podcast, this community, and above all, your health. This week, your recipe is for crustless spinach quiche, and the details for your quarterly live Q&A will be in that email too. So until next week, remember, it's about redefining what aging looks like. It starts now with us. Let's not sweat the small stuff, and let's focus on the little things. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.